In his second report on the launch of John Brownfield's book, Geoffrey and Jill Garnier, A Marriage of the Arts, Mike Dees visited their daughter-in-law, Pat Garnier, at the family home in Newlyn. She talked about the family's history, the Newlyn School, and the amount of work the Garniers produced.
Pat Garnier, you married into this family.
Yes. In 1951. I came down here the year before to meet my future in-laws. And then we got married. I was with their son, Peter, who's also an artist and a writer.
Tell me about the diverse backgrounds of Geoffrey and Jill Garnier.
They were first cousins in that their grandfather, both of their grandfather, was a lovely man who became the Dean of Lincoln, and his father was the Dean of Winchester. So there is a holy background to the family. Geoffrey learnt a lot of art work at Bushy, and Jill, I think, was almost able to paint naturally from the books that we've had from 1911, where she was drawing and keeping a record of her life and drawing places that she'd visited with her mother. I think her father died fairly early, but her mother travelled all over the world. And because she had so many cousins, her grandfather had 14 children, 7 sons and 7 daughters.
There's a song in there somewhere.
So she had lots of cousins, and I think she probably stayed with them in different parts of the country. And I think all this is appearing in the book, which is a very interesting background to these two artists.
And they met here at Stanhope Forbes' studio, which they both come down to Cornwall to attend a painting course. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I think so, yes. I think Geoffrey had come down before, and he was sharing a studio with some other local artists, and Jill came down and stayed with some students in a house close by called Wheel Betsy, run by Mrs. Tregertha, and she had students there. They had lots of parties, apparently. They met down here and then were married in Newlyn.
And then they subsequently moved into Orchard Cottage, where we are today, in Newlyn,
yes.
And they built the studios in the grounds here.
Yes, they had a studio each. Jill's studio it's a very sloping garden with a great view across the whole of Mounts Bay, with St Michael's Mount in the distance. And she used to walk down some beautiful steps called Penguin Steps. And then I think she eventually thought that's, I don't need to go that far. So she had her studio moved further up the garden, closer to the house. And they also had built a garage each. They had a car each. I think this was probably in the late 30s. And Jill was a great smoker. And she used to go into Penzance, driving into Penzance apparently, and would stop the car, because there were hardly any other cars around, to light her cigarette, with a bull terrier sitting beside her. That's the sort of lovely life she had.
They stayed here. In the book it says that they very rarely travelled away from Cornwall.
Geoffrey didn't travel. As far as I know, the only time I've ever known him travel was to go out to see his mother, I think, somewhere in Beckington for her funeral. But Jill, she suffered from, is it when you've got fear of being enclosed? Claustrophobia. So she used to go and visit a lot of relations in different parts of the country, including going out to Scotland, trailing her caravan behind her. So I remember visiting her with friends in Cheltenham, and the caravan was in the yard, in the drive of this house, and that's where she slept, so that she could make an escape if she wanted to, whereas you can't do that in somebody's house. And she travelled quite a lot with the caravan.
The recent retrospective of the Garniers' art, which has been at Penley House in Penzance, their styles are very different. I particularly enjoyed Jill Garnier's work. I thought it was just amazing, the diversity of it, and the textures, yes. Which are all very well illustrated in the book.
Yes. She didn't make a commercial enterprise of her things. She used to give them away to friends Geoffrey did. He had Bridger down in Penzance who sold his aquatints and his prints, but Jill didn't. She just gave them away. And she felt really that Geoffrey wasn't admiring her skills particularly. But I think this is probably the way things were in those days. The man was in charge. He made the money, and the wife was simply amusing herself.
John Branfield, who has written 2 other biographies of artists, did he come to you with the idea for this book?
No, I forget what happened. Whether I was certainly told it was necessary. I think whether Pen Lee said it would be a good idea to have a book alongside the exhibition.
And you must speak to Pat Garnier because she holds all the records of the family.
Yes, and I said, well, yes. So I went ahead with it. Even though I have done writing, I couldn't have produced this sort of book. That's not my sort of writing. Mine was more reporting. But this was beautifully done. And I did all I could to find the information that John wanted.
It is a remarkable book, and I've certainly enjoyed reading it and sharing it with other people.
Good. And the other members of the Garnier family, and there are quite a lot of them because they were Huguenots who were thrown out of France in whenever, 1869 or something, and they're all absolutely delighted with the book. And I've been sending copies up to different parts of the country, and they have been distributing them among their children and their friends and relations. So it's getting around.
To me, the Garniers are the last link with the Newlyn School, and through you we can reach the Garniers because you knew them. They were family.
Yes.
To me, it's a very important link, a living link almost to the artists who came here in the 1800s.
Yes, I think that's true. And the exhibition, of course, has got paintings by their friends, the Dorsey Sykes and the Stanhope Forbeses and the
Dodd Proctor.
Yes.
Pat Garnier, thank you very much for guarding all these files, possessions, notes, huge amounts of books,
yes.
and writings that Jill in particular kept meticulous records of, but Peter also. And
yes.
I know when you moved
Yes.
into this house in the 80s,
Yes.
you
Yes.
found so many things just stored away, and
Yes.
just normal course of people's working lives, that they
Yes.
accumulate records, and
Yes.
it must have been fascinating to unearth them all.
It is. It's like living in a museum, in fact. There's so much ancient stuff in here because they never threw anything away, including ancient old books. I've just found a book to do with making furniture of about 1870-something. You know that you don't really need those at the moment because you can always go to B&Q. But they're all in the house.
Wonderful. Pat Garnier, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
That programme was presented and recorded by Mike Dees on location in Newlyn, a Hearsay production for Cornwall Online Radio. John Bramfield's beautifully illustrated book, Geoffrey and Jill Garnier, A Marriage of the Arts, is published by Sanson & Company and available from all good bookshops.